Hey everybody. So most people trying to fix their brain are actually focusing on the wrong things. They're skipping the very thing that powers every thought, mood, and memory. And what's that? That's actually minerals. And without them, your brain literally can't fire. Hi, I'm Lisa Andy Garcia, and I help people optimize their brain health so they can feel calm, focused, and productive. And if that sounds like something you want more of in your life, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Click on the notification bell so you don't miss any of the tools and education I will be sharing next week or each week. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about minerals, and not just what you're going to be finding in a multivitamin, but foundational minerals that your brain absolutely needs to think clearly, regulate your mood, and generate energy. I'm going to show you how they work, how deficiencies show up, and what you can do right now to start replenishing them in a way that actually makes a difference. So first, let's start with the basics. Your brain and your body are electric. We're electrical beings. We're also light beings. We run on electricity, water, and light. But so we're electrical, right? We kind of know that when with our heart, right? We get an EKG and you can see the electrical impulses. When you put leads on your brain, you can see electrical current. So we are electric. So every thought, movement, memory, and mood is powered by tiny electrical signals that move between your neurons. But those signals, they don't just happen on their own. They rely on electrolyte minerals, especially sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, in order to open and close the channels in your brain, or in your brain cells for that matter, and allow the information to move. So you need to think of your neurons like little light switches. Without enough minerals, the switches get stuck and messages will either move slowly or not at all, and that can show up as difficulty concentrating, feeling mentally foggy, slower processing speed, mood swings, irritability, physical fatigue that doesn't go away with rest. Let's take a look at some of the key players. So first off, we have magnesium, and this is probably the most common deficiency that we as practitioners see. It's also one of the most critical minerals for brain health. Magnesium supports over 300 biochemical reactions in the body, and many of them are directly involved in making neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA, right? And that's your calming and feel-good brain chemical. That's really important. Also regulating stress response and protecting the brain from overstimulation, especially in people who are highly sensitive or prone to anxiety. When you're low in magnesium, you might feel tense, irritable, you might be easily overstimulated or unable to concentrate, even if you're trying really hard. Low magnesium is also linked to migraines, insomnia, and hormone imbalances that can further impact mental clarity. So if you are experiencing, let's say PMS, one of the things to do is to make sure you're getting enough magnesium right before. And again, like with migraines, I had learned to help my migraines by, as soon as I feel something coming on, taking a lot of magnesium. So the question is how do we support magnesium levels? So we can have leafy greens, pumpkin seeds, avocados, dark chocolate. Those are all our natural sources, but most people need more than food to provide them with enough magnesium, especially if they're under stress, or if they have gut issues, or if they drink caffeine regularly, because all of that depletes magnesium from your body. Supplementing with magnesium glycinate or threonate can be very effective, especially in the evening, to calm the brain and to support sleep. So magnesium threonate, it's a little bit, at one time there's only one source that I could find, but now it's a little bit more common. But threonate is the form of magnesium that actually can cross the blood-brain barrier best. Glycinate is a good one for nerves, and there's also different forms. There's citrate and malate and carbonate, and so every form of magnesium does something a little bit different. So magnesium citrate is good for bowel movements, but it's not going to necessarily be good for the brain. So be very pay close attention to the form of magnesium. Magnesium sulfate is Epsom salt, and that is what so Epsom salt, that's magnesium sulfate. That's really good, especially to absorb through the skin. So anyway, I just wanted you to be aware that there are different forms of magnesium. All right, next we have potassium. So potassium works with sodium to maintain the electrical gradient that neurons use to fire. You've probably heard of the potassium-sodium pump. Without enough potassium, signals move more slowly, and that can create a general sense of mental dullness, trouble staying alert, and even emotional flatness. Potassium is especially important for people who feel drained in the afternoon or get wired but tired at night. You can increase potassium naturally with foods like sweet potatoes, coconut water, bananas, white beans, and cooked leafy greens. I also really like celery, and celery juice is a good source of potassium. Putting celery in, like a broth or in your soup is really good as a good source of potassium. And then there is sodium. And so for sodium, we have to be really careful as to what we mean. We don't mean table salt, because table salt has been processed in such a way that it's actually very unbeneficial to your body. But we're talking about mineral-rich sodium from sources like sea salt, Himalayan salt, Celtic sea salt. Sodium often gets a bad reputation because we've had decades of being programmed that salt is bad for us. However, table salt, more like let's say just straight table salt, it has been so highly refined and processed that they've taken all the other minerals out of it. So we need all the minerals together, because otherwise you're going to get all the sodium and then everything else is like down here. So you want everything to come together in a natural form so it's nice and balanced. And low sodium can make you feel dizzy, spacey, or your brain kind of flickers in and out. It's especially common in people who sweat a lot. So if you are naturally a heavy sweater, I am not. I'm the opposite. I have a hard time sweating. So if you're a natural sweater, then you want to drink a lot of water with with replenishing your minerals. Not just sodium, but in general with all your electrolytes. Because if you drink a lot of water without replenishing your minerals, or you follow low sodium diets, a lot of people do follow low sodium diets, then those can be your symptoms. And in fact, I'm sure I'm going to say this a little bit later, but when your sodium is not sodium in general, but salt. So if you have high blood pressure, a lot of people think it's because what they need to do is to take away their salt. Like they need to limit their salt intake. What you actually need to do is you need to increase your salt intake. But again, with sea salt, Celtic sea salt, Himalayan salt, real salt in Utah, we have real salt. It's also pink salt. It comes from a mine. It's cleaner than Himalayan salt. Himalayan salt, you have to really be careful with Himalayan salt because it depends on how it is mined, by which company, as to how clean it is and if it's contaminated with other metals. So I'm saying it's way better than table salt, but if you're kind of debating by which to get, I would stick with the Redmond's real salt. That is going to be a real clean source. Okay, so again, we were still talking about sodium. So one of the easiest ways to support all three of these minerals that we've talked about so far is to start your day with a glass of filtered water, a squeeze of lemon, and a pinch of unrefined sea salt. I do that to most mornings when I can remember. If I'm kind of in a habit, the first thing I do is I heat up some water. I put lemon and I put salt, and that's what I drink in the morning. And it has benefits for different reasons. It helps rehydrate the body after you sleep. It supports adrenal function, and it gets its electrical systems online first thing in the morning. And then we have calcium. And most people think about calcium in bones or calcium even in teeth, but it's also a huge role in the neurotransmitter release and nerve conduction. So too much calcium in relationship to magnesium can make the nervous system feel jittery and overactive. And that's why being in balance is so important. It's not just about how much of one mineral you're getting, but how they're all working together. Because when you have the cell, you have the calcium ion channel, and if too much calcium gets into the cell, that's when you got a whole bunch of problems. So balance is definitely important. Now we'll talk a little bit just about trace minerals, and those are things like zinc, selenium, manganese, copper. They don't get as much attention, as publicly, but they're very vital for things like detoxification, immune regulation, and protecting the brain from oxidative stress. Zinc, for example, is essential for memory formation and mental resilience. If you've ever felt mentally fragile during illness, hormonal shifts, or low stress, then zinc might be part of the picture. Another thing to say about zinc is that we have, so there's kind of, I don't want to say it's a condition, but maybe it's a condition, but it's called pyroluria. So it has to do with like you're not metabolizing your heme red blood cells correctly. And what it does is it basically will cause your body to leach like B6 and zinc together. And when that happens, there's a very high risk of anxiety, and it's probably not necessarily because, well, it is because they're low, but what also happens is zinc, all minerals have a balance, a thing that it balances against, and zinc and copper balance each other, and so you have very low zinc, so you're going to have high copper, or your copper is going to be higher than zinc. Maybe your copper isn't even really that high. It's just not in balance or in the right ratio. And when your copper is high, one of the symptoms is anxiety. So copper is very, very important. Some people are low in copper, but if you're too high in copper, then you might be experiencing things like anxiety. The one thing to do, I would suggest, if you had a little tip from here, is if you are experiencing anxiety, especially social anxiety, the first thing I would do is start loading up for a little while on B6 and zinc. I would also take magnesium and other things, but a little bit more B6 and zinc to really replenish that and see if that doesn't help, because it's probable that your body is leaching it and you need to kind of put it back. All right, so what you can do is, again, start your day with a mineral-rich drink, filtered water, lemon, sea salt. Personally, I have a glass jar. It's my favorite jars I have. I'm down to 2 because I've broken 2, but I have these 4 milk, they're like old 1 liter milk jars from Japan, and so they're really cute and I really like them because when we bought our raw milk in it, and then I save them, and so I have those jars and I fill them up with water, and that's what I drink throughout the day. So I fill throughout the day. I don't just drink one of them, I drink several of them, but every time I fill the water bottle, I put a pinch of salt. I also use 40,000 volts by Trace Minerals. I think it's Trace Minerals. They have a lot of different products, a lot of different electrolytes, drops. So I use 40,000 volts and I'll squeeze it in, or I'll use, I tend to kind of rotate my minerals. I also am taking, at night before I go to bed, I take magnesium special, and then I also take, with my regular supplements, a special mineral blend. So I started about last fall, early fall, just saying, you know what, I really need to really concentrate on just mineralizing my body. I was, if you ever get like dry hands or whatever, a lot of times that's what it's from. It also could be from a lack of oils. Okay, so you could include more potassium-rich whole foods like sweet potatoes, white beans, cooked greens into your meals. And avoid drinking plain water all day long, because if you're drinking plain water, it's good, but but it's actually not so good, because you can actually dilute your electrolytes and then you're making the symptoms worse. So you want to be, all your water, you want to be replenishing with electrolytes. And I do want you to be careful, because a lot of times those electrolyte drinks have a lot of artificial sweeteners and flavors or colors in them. So be very, very careful. I just found, because I have a client, her daughter won't drink, I think it was like, won't drink water, like anything that she drinks has to be sweet. I don't remember exactly what it is. She has special needs, so she has like a little thing. So I found that Redmond's, the same company that makes the Redmond salt, I love them because locally they have a little store, and that's where we get our raw milk from. But they have an electrolyte. I would just look them up. Redmond's electrolyte, and they have for kids, and it is flavored, but it's all natural flavors. You do have to be careful when people say natural flavors, because it could be MSG, but I think in this case, because it was like flavored from all these different fruits, and you can always call the company if you're not sure. But so if you need, like for your children, in order for them to drink more electrolyte water, because I wouldn't buy the electrolytes from places like Costco or Walmart or whatever, unless you were really confident in the product. You've called the company and you made sure that the ingredients, that they're not having any sabotaging ingredients in there, because that's what happens. And then also don't forget your minerals, magnesium supplementation. If you had to pick one mineral to extra supplement, would be magnesium, because you don't usually have to worry about calcium. We tend to get too much calcium naturally in our diet, but magnesium is something that we do tend to be a little bit low in. Glycinate is calming. threonate crosses the blood-brain barrier. Malate's good. So if you can find a blended magnesium, if you want to hit different things, they have like a tri-blend or even a 7. I think there's 7 types. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for, but yeah, you can easily find a tri-blend. But if you have brain issues, definitely 3-in-8 is one that you want. And then also my favorite product, I have another favorite product, it's called Quinton Water by Quicksilver Scientific. You can message me if you want to know more about that. But it is, Quicksilver is just distributing it in the US, but they get it from deep in the ocean waters off of the coast of France. And just the composition of this water of minerals is just like, there's an isotonic and a hypertonic. So the isotonic form is just like our own plasma. And so it is a very healing water. And the hypertonic is if you need a lot, like let's say there's a sick, for people, let's say with cancer or whatever, they'll use this hypertonic in order to really mineralize them. So I like that one. And again, I like the 40,000 volts by Trace Minerals Research. And because there's no flavors or anything, it's going to be a little bit salty. So you do have to make sure that you're putting it in a bit of water. You can't, a lot of times when you get those electrolyte drops, you don't want to add, you do not want to take them straight. They're like way too salty. I guess you probably could if you wanted to, but you're not going to want to. Okay, so and if you want to really understand what your mineral levels look like and not just guess, then the best tools I use in my practice is something called an HTMA, which is a hair tissue mineral analysis. It's a simple, non-invasive test. It looks at the mineral content stored in your hair over a 2 to 3 month period. And it gives us a pretty good accurate picture of what's going on mineralized than a typical blood test, because a blood test is going to show what's circulating at the moment. A hair test, you're going to take hair from the nape of your neck, about this much of it, but recent hair, you want recent hair, and then you're going to get a pretty good status of what's being excreted from your body over the last couple months. And you're going to be able to see the balances, you see individual minerals, the balances, and even heavy metals. But what's more important is what we do with that information. So I don't just hand you the lab results. I do provide a personalized interpretation and protocol based on your symptoms, lifestyle, and your goals, because the goal isn't just knowing what's off. It is to help your brain and your body to start working better. So if you are feeling off and you want to know whether your mineral levels could be playing a role, you can find more about that testing option through the link in the description, or just reach out and I will help you figure out what is the next right step. And if you're doing everything right but still feel mentally off, this could be the one missing piece, because minerals don't just help your body, they literally power your brain. If you're anything like me and you supplement a lot, you might actually be underdoing the minerals, because I was like focused on all these other things. And finally, like I said, in the fall, I just had to say, okay, I'm going to really focus on my minerals. I still do other things, but I put a heavy focus on my minerals, and because I was a heavy water drinker, and I was probably diluting my my minerals. And one thing to note too is that your minerals levels and balance and your adrenals go hand in hand, so you're going to want to make sure that that is taken care of. All right, so if you like this episode, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and so you can get more in-depth videos like this one. And if you're interested in adding extra minerals to your regimen, you can find them on my full script dispensary by following the link in the description below. Remember, your brain is resilient. It just needs the right support to function the way it was designed to do. All right, I will see you in the next video next week. Bye-bye.